And welcome back, Titans, to episode 52 of Titans of Today. We have Bill Liao, legendary investor, and he's going to be talking with us today about purpose. Bill, welcome on in.
Thank you so much, Jacob. So glad to be here.
Absolutely. So we've had our first conversation was quite riveting. When you meet somebody who's incredibly successful, actually, I think the best place for us to start is my philosophy behind Titans of Today is that a single conversation can change your life. And that's why we do the show, so that when people listen to it, they get in the room with more people like yourself and can get some wisdom or some insight. But you took that a step further. You said a single intentional conversation can change your life. So talk some more about the difference between just a conversation and one that's intentional, and really how people who are listening to this can utilize these kind of methods, podcasts, conversations, and what have you, to really move forward in their life.
Yeah, the intention thing is something that people often leave out when they're in conversation. So they're too focused on how am I going to appear? What can I virtue signal to this person such that they think better of me? Rather than taking into a conversation like a very difficult topic, having an intention to solve a personal financial crisis, having an intention to alleviate their depression, having an intentional conversation about what really they do have to change in order to have a different outcome than the one they've been getting over and over again.
Hmm.
If you set an intention when you do a startup, that's just common good practice. Anyone starting a business without any sort of forward planning or any intentions whatsoever knows their business is not going to succeed. How is life any different?
So, have there been crises in your life that you have solved and approached with, maybe at one point that crisis got you into a state where you felt down, you felt like your emotions were against you, the world was against you, or different kind of things, right? Those kind of things manifest when you come against challenges. And then maybe how intentionality helped you to reshape that, and maybe some examples about the people that have guided you through crises like that, and so that we can form a mental model of how someone could go from in pain, depressed, personal financial crisis to in a better state, moving forward with intentionality and navigating themselves clear.
Absolutely. One of the things that my wife and I did when we had our first child on the way was we became intentional about improving our lives because we wanted to provide for our first son. And to set the scene, we were both in dead end jobs working for the same company. We had about 30 grand in credit card debt and we're living in a rental house. And there was nothing that could have really shifted unless we were intentional about it. And we were sitting down with my then boss, Peter Ball, who was a wonderful contribution to us. And he said, listen, there's this thing called personal development. I've done it. I'll pay for you two to go and do something so that you can prepare better for your first child. And we actually went and did that. And we went in with the intention of how do we shift our lives such that we can provide for our son better? And the other thing about it is that there were unintended consequences. So after doing some of that personal development work, and I think any sort of work that has you introspect, communicate, and learn wisdom from others, particularly philosophical wisdom, is valid. After we did that work, my wife, Kerry, went to an event with a charity called the Hunger Project. And the Hunger Project is all about intentional transformation through empowerment of women to alleviate poverty. And they have long identified that women are the key change agents to end poverty in any particular region. And Kerry came back from an evening of the Hunger Project and she said, oh, Bill, all these things that we've been talking about, they're actually doing on the ground and it's so exciting. And I've just pledged $5,000 to them. You've got to come and see them. And I was like, I got to come and see them. All right. I got to come and tell them that there's no way that that's going to happen. And I went to the evening, and the country director of the Hunger Project India at the time, God rest her, Lolita, had brought 3 village women to Melbourne who had never seen electricity before. They'd never seen a lift. They'd never flown an aircraft before. And in their native Tamil, they were like passionately speaking about how they committed to altering the lives and trajectories of their own villages through their empowerment. And it was incredibly moving. And at the end of it, I was in deep conflict because I knew from all of the work that we'd done that if you're going to create a new future, you've got to do it in language, and you've got to live with integrity with the language that you've created. And here was an example of people with far less than me who were doing exactly that and who I wanted to support. And yet the fact of the matter was that we had 30 grand in debt. We didn't have $5,000 to give them. And I went up to the leader and I said, listen, hats off. What you're doing is amazing. Yeah, I've got $5 in my wallet. I can give you that for sure. This pledge of 5,000 is probably not going to happen unless I win the lottery. And the real turning point was when Lolita played a little trick on me. She played a little verbal trick on me. She said, listen, Bill, I spoke to Kerry, and she and I both agree that with the tools that you've got, there's a brighter future. So I want you to imagine that pledge. I want you to imagine future year giving that pledge, and the circumstances are such that handing over that pledge money wouldn't hurt you at all. And the leader asked me, who would you have to become in order for that to become true? And I closed my eyes and I just got this picture of me in a tuxedo handing over one of those giant novelty checks. And I was like, I am not that guy. I want to be that guy. And in realizing that, it crystallized for me what I needed to do to actually start my first business.
Wow.
And I had a motivation to do it that was outside of me. I wanted to fulfill a pledge. Now, one of the other things that I learned is that if you're going to do something, there's this saying, go large or go home, go big or go home. I actually do believe that. I said to Lita, I got it, I'm committed, and I pledged 50,000. I quit my job, much to Peter's disappointment. He was okay with it. And I started my own business. And the first thing I needed to do, I realized as a techie, as an engineer, was learn how to sell. And so I started door-to-door selling. And I actually got good enough at that I actually invented my own first product, which was I started selling a course for engineering companies to learn how to sell. Because I was an engineer and I learned how to sell.
Wow.
And it's actually pretty straightforward stuff, selling. And you can learn it. You don't have to be born to it. You can learn it. And so that was my first business. And I sold that business. And that gave me the stake to make my first co-founding business for something bigger. And that next business became a 1.2 billion market cap business. And so off to the races.
Most definitely. A few
And
things I want to
fulfilled within 1 year of making the pledge, I fulfilled 100,000.
Jeez. Drastic, transformative change. You mentioned something along that line. You said to create the future, you need to use your language in an intentional way or something along those lines with integrity.
You need to articulate.
And so you said that very declaredly, as if that is the path to create your future. Talk more about that, because clearly you've demonstrated how someone can go from where you've explained 30,000 in debt, not sure about how you're going to provide, and you felt closed in, all the way to, hey, a few
Yeah.
years later, years that is, $1.2 billion success, and continuously parlaying that up and up. So talk more about that specifically and how people can really recognize or become aware of what that means. And because one thing I've experienced is that if when you're going forward to achieve the next thing in your life, it may feel it often feels so like almost what you said, where you said, I'm not that person. And that stops a lot of people, is just the I'm not that person. And so talk more about that, create the future, language and integrity.
If you say it, it's true, right? Like, I'm not that person. If you say I'm not that guy, I'm not that person, you are fulfilling that prophecy immediately. That's the thing about the human world that occurs in language. Paying careful attention to the language you use is critical. When I started the entrepreneurial journey, I'm a high school dropout. I had some computer skills. That's what was keeping the wolf from the door, and not a lot else to recommend me. That journey was founded on creating a new future in language and then living into that future. Now, people often talk about integrity as a value. And honestly, to me, integrity is not a value. You might value integrity. Most people who tell me that their number one value is integrity have none. Integrity simply means doing what you said you would do by when you said you would do it, or if you cannot do it, alerting everybody early that you can't do it so that the harm is minimized, and then making up for it as if you had done it. Nothing's perfect. So sometimes you really can't do what you said you were going to do. Make up for it. The good people, the people who have strong integrity, will bend over backwards and forwards and sideways to make up for it. Those are the people you want in your life. The people who will actually put it out there that they're going to do it. They're going to say they're going to do it and do it on time. And then if they can't do it, they're going to let you know straight away, and they're actually going to make up for it because it means something to them. Those are the people that you want to hire, and that's the person that you want to be, and those are the friends you want to have. In fact, integrity isn't so much a value as the floor on which you construct. It's the foundation on which you construct anything. In fact, I would go so far as to say that your total ability to impact the world is bounded by the level of integrity you can bring to your words. Not as an intellectual exercise, as action on the ground.
Like in a ship, it's structural integrity.
Yeah.
It's
in the gym
that holds it together.
Lifting weights at the gym, right? There are people who have gym memberships that have no integrity around their gym membership because they never go and actually lift the weights. I have type 2 diabetes, and I have a commitment to keeping my blood sugars stable. So I'm talking to you from a treadmill because I know if I talk to you while sitting in a chair, my blood sugars will go up. That's just a fact. Now, do I feel great having to walk on a treadmill to get to where I am? Not always. And I do it.
Mm-hmm.
And my actual values are kindness, curiosity, getting shit done, family, and civility. Because those are the things I really value. And I act accordingly. My purpose in life is a world that works for all living things while civilization thrives. Now, that language has been refined. It didn't come out of thin air. It was things that I saw and thought about deeply. Kindness is my dad's top value, and I inherited that. And as I've shared those values and that purpose with other people over time, as it's evolved, people have gone, yeah, that's great. And we could do this, or have you thought about that? And so you iterate on it until it lights you up and it lights up other people. That is the new future. And the integrity is about acting in accordance and knowing that you can always improve it. Whereas the other method of finding purpose that I see a lot is the lottery ticket version, where people go, oh, I'm searching for my purpose. I'm just waiting for it to land on me. I'm waiting to become inspired by something. The hard truth is that action begets passion. We homeschool our kids and we had a rule. When trying a new activity, you had to do it 7 times. And if you gave it a really good go 7 times, and at the end of those 7 times, you still hated it, fine. That was not for you. The number of times where they would go 1 or 2 or 3 times and go, I don't like this. And then the 4th time go, oh, why do we have to go home now? I'm really into it. Yeah, it was just legion. People fall at the first hurdle a lot. They don't bring enough integrity to keep going through the initial embarrassment. Action begets passion. And so if you're waiting to be inspired, you're going to be waiting a long time. If you take action on a lot of things and you repeat with integrity some of those things, there's a good chance you're going to find that you get lit up by that. And once you do start getting a taste of that passion, oh, watch out, world.
Definitely. So repeating that action at least 7 times, whether it's going and pitching in a specific way or to apply to the world of business, really not just giving up if the first call doesn't go right, or the first you pick up the phone and dial and somebody doesn't answer, not giving up, just continuing with that. So what are some other ways that applies in the world of business? And specifically, if we look at biotech, I think you mentioned this, and this was pretty game changing for me, was the covenant of entrepreneurship is conviction. And then you talked about the covenant of the corporate world, other things like that. I think that was a groundbreaking topic and insight. But I think the world of biotech is one of the places where the highest degree of conviction is required for success. Because you might do 100, 1,000 attempts or even more at something. And then, your 1,001th attempt is, okay, we got something that might work. And now we need to go raise $5 million, $10 million, whatever that is. And it's really about conviction, not a process in there. But talk more about, for the entrepreneurs, the mothers, the fathers, the people who are out here listening and want to take your topic or take your insight and apply it in their life.
So with conviction being the covenant of entrepreneurship and investment, by the way, investors have to build conviction just as you have to build conviction. That is great territory to play around in. Working out how you build conviction is exercise. It's a masterclass in having a concrete way of communicating, having clarity, modeling things, figuring out what works and what doesn't. All of those things built towards conviction. In biotech, you've also got to have a real facility with the covenant of science. Now, for those listeners who aren't familiar with the idea of a covenant, is a kind of a master agreement. It's a big contract, and it's across an entire sector usually. And I like to summarize covenants down to the single word on which everyone is convened around. So the religious covenant, for instance, all of religion is convened around a single word, and that word is faith. Now, you can have a religion without faith, and maybe some Southern Baptist churches with very large commercial facilities operate that way. I don't know. I'm not going to judge. I'm just saying, if there isn't true faith, it's probably not a religion. It's probably something else. The corporate covenant, which a lot of people work for corporates, they don't realize that corporate covenant is actually trust. And the reason that corporates and startups don't get along a lot of the time is because conviction doesn't have the level of evidence that trust has. So corporates will want to do it the proven way, the same way, the way that they can trust every time. Whether you think a corporate is trustworthy or not is irrelevant. It's the environment and the covenant of repeatability. This is why you don't have so many startup airlines in comparison to long-term corporate airlines. The scientific and engineering covenant is doubt. It's convened around doubt. Without doubt, there is no scientific method, and without scientific method, it's not a biotech startup, it's Theranos. So if you have deep science, deep tech startup, which almost all biotech actually is by definition, as a founder, you've got to walk between the worlds of science and entrepreneurship. And that's a difficult journey because they're almost polar opposites, right? Like conviction and doubt, strange bedfellows at best. And learning to navigate between the two, that requires particularly the scientists to expand the way that they interact. By the way, in engineering, doubt is also essential. You would not get on a plane if you knew that the engineers were all optimists. Like, the last thing you want to hear from a jet engine maintenance tech is, I'll be fine.
I think it'll work.
Yeah, it'll be grand, as they say in Ireland.
What is, and I want to go into that, the concept of the covenant deeper and somehow tie in the sales aspect and how they interact and how to interact from one to the next. But it also, is there a covenant of the individual? Is it integrity?
No.
No.
Covenants are master agreements, and agreements are between people.
Gotcha.
Integrity is the closest thing. That's an agreement with yourself, really.
Exactly.
And it's not the covenant in the way that we think of. A covenant is a master agreement. Any scientist knows scientific method if they're an actual scientist. Any corporate employee or manager knows that there is a certain way to do things, and there's stuff that you don't do. And any entrepreneur knows that if they can't build conviction, they're done. And that's because the interaction with other people. All of these covenants are conversations. And the last person you should have a conversation with is yourself, at least not without a guide.
So if the covenant is the conversation, how does a startup properly interact with the environment of the corporate in a way that they're staying true to their covenant conviction, but they're able to succeed in that environment of trust? What does that look like? I think that brings into aspect
It looks
in
like
the sales element as well.
It looks like a lot of listening. It looks like having 3 times as many conversations as you think you need in order to gain the agreement that's going to get you going forward. When somebody operates within a covenant, there are a huge number of assumptions that go uncommunicated and unchallenged because they're assumed in the covenant. And if you're coming from outside of the covenant, you don't even know unless you interrogate and question and listen and try and get where they're coming from. There's just so much more to know when you're from the other covenant. And each covenant has bad habits. Like in the scientific covenant, a lot of the time stature is gained by making other people feel stupid. In the entrepreneurial covenant, stature is gained by making other people feel smarter.
Mm.
In one, it's a bad habit. In the other, it's a good habit. It's a good habit up until the Dunning-Kruger effect kicks in. And then people start to think that they're way smarter than they actually are. Everything is a balance, and everything requires interrogation and listening. If I am interacting with a corporate, I'm old enough and wise enough to know now that they're going to have an entire set of terminology that I have to interact with. My startup might have targets. They've got quarterly KPIs that they can't miss. My startup might have new people being hired all the time. They are concerned about their mortgage and making sure that they don't make a career-ending choice. My startup can move very quickly when it comes to messaging. They have to take it through their marketing department, their PR department, and get sign-off at C-level to put out a 3-line note, let alone a press release.
Hmm.
And they're doing it because they trust systems, because systems work at scale.
So you mentioned a line there, try to get where they're coming from. Is that a
Yes.
core from sales that you've learned in terms of how to succeed as an engineer in selling? Is that a core principle?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only trying to get where someone's coming from, trying to come from the same place. Shift your position so that you are in the same room and are coming from the same place intentionally and meaningfully. Like the language that you use, the things that you believe, the things that you value, find the resonant versions that work with the other person's reality. It's like my number one value is kindness, right? I love to work with other kind people. I love to work with people that have humility, that have caring, that have values that resonate with kindness. They don't have to have the same exact value. They just need something that resonates for us to get along. And identifying what those resonant values are is super powerful. Well, it's the same when you're walking between the worlds of startup and corporate and science. Institutions, academia, all fit that mold. And unless you take the time to build those bridges and put your head in that space and learn to walk between the worlds, you're always going to be surprised, and usually not in a good way.
You talked about this subject maybe being a little bit complex, but building conviction, I think at the foundation, what to include one part that you said is that action begets passion. But when it comes to that level of conviction, a lot of people believe that they need to go and achieve the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And once they get to step 3, they'll develop that conviction. But in my experience, you don't really get to that level unless you're able to build the conviction up front. So for those that are, is that accurate? And for those that are starting businesses or are in growing businesses and things like that and want to take it to the next level, lead their team in a better way, how can they start to bring some of this true intentionality, raw conversations, and creating that conviction from where they are to where they want to go?
So it starts with an articulation. One of the things that we regularly reject founders for in our investment programs is that they're solo founders. And there are many reasons for that. The number one reason for me is they haven't been able to articulate the future well enough such that one other human is completely convinced. Like you want to test your conviction, see if it's contagious. And if it isn't, don't blame everyone else in the world. Refine your message. get it to be infectious.
And go ahead.
When people can articulate what they want to do really well, they throw their heart into it, and other people go, yeah, I want that. That's when you know you're getting it right. Yeah, when I worked on the purpose statement of We Forest, my tree planting charity that I co-founded way back when and now has 100 plus million trees growing in the ground, all lifting village women out of poverty. It's cool. I wanted to sum up what we do very neatly. We make Earth cooler in every possible sense of that statement. That is thought that other people got behind. That allowed me to find Marie Noel, my co-founder and CEO. That allowed us to get our first donors. That conviction, that articulation begat the conviction. The conviction begat the action, and the action continues to beget the passion.
So I think it's something I can learn from that and your purpose statement for your life as a whole and all the things that you're doing is that, and in contrast it with the lottery ticket approach, that a lot of people are looking for the purpose. And it seems like when we're looking for our purpose, it's such a big thing in our minds that we think it needs to be a 300-page document that just emerges in our head, and all of a sudden we understand the world perfectly and we know exactly what we're supposed to do. Whereas when you hear really well articulated purpose statements, it's more, here's 7 words, fill in these 7 words and put in, if we get enough meaning in those words, that really becomes declarative and inspiring, and more than that, of course. So I think that can simplify when it comes to helping people find what purpose is. And then another thing that you mentioned, you shared in our first call, is that it will evolve along the way. So if you start with one, you go out, you get into the world, and it can evolve from a few different ways, as you've now mentioned. One is just tell it to other people. And if they're not moved by it, doesn't mean they're wrong. It means that, and it doesn't mean even that you're necessarily not on the right path. It just means that you have to get that to be, like you said, moving, infectious is the right word there.
Yes. You want it infectious. A good question to ask people is, when you tell somebody something, you could watch them. If you watch intensely, you can tell when they're getting into it, and you can tell when you've lost them, and ask them afterwards, where did I lose you? And they'll tell you straight up what words didn't work for them. That's great feedback. Like, you know you lost them, just ask for it, just double check it. This is why I say it's just about conversation. It's okay to start with 300 words or 1,000 words or 10,000 words. Just don't expect that you're going to be able to say those 10,000 words to any other human and have them engage. It's a very rare human indeed that will sit through 10,000 words of your raison d'etre.
Definitely true. So then, as we're looking forward in your life, you've very clearly defined your purpose statement. And as you're looking forward then, how are you going to make sure that it continues to evolve?
The simple test is, when I say it to people, do I get people wanting to join still or not? If I get, oh, that's nice, then something may be wrong. And bear in mind, articulations change because language changes. I used to think, oh, it'd all be fine if we just had a world that works for all living things. And then I realized that at the time that I said that, the thing that mattered was being taken for granted, which was civilization. all of the things that disturb me right now are people that are exploiting civilization without paying any mind to how fragile civilization actually can be. And if you just extract value, which is the easy thing to do, and you never pay the price, it's civilization that pays the price. And civilization is expensive in its own right, and it's valuable. And so I actually ended up adding while civilization thrives, because that is the immediate crisis that I see before us. It is also the thing that makes everything else meaningful. Yeah, there is a kind of environmentalist who says, oh, the world would be better without humans. My argument to that, my counter to that is, without the perception of beauty, how does that matter? And so far, we're the only ones who tell the stories of beauty. So yes, we definitely need to improve our interaction with our environment such that we stop killing off species that don't deserve it and start being the gentle custodians of this planet that we need to be. We need to act like we mean to stay. Because, like, I can tell you, Mars is a shitty place to live. So, being able to continually evolve isn't a question of choice, it's an inevitability. Some words go in and out of fashion. You're going to have to change your purpose so that it remains relevant. If you think you've got it right, I promise you it's only right for maybe a few years, and then something else changes. And then you could still have exactly the same intent, and the articulation is wrong.
I think that's a really good point, because a lot of people that are purpose-driven get stuck on, it might have worked at one point, but then they get stuck on it. And then they keep going, assume that other people are wrong, instead of, like you're saying, evolving it, making sure it's infectious, because that's really the driver. That's the catalyst for your vision and your purpose to become more true or more realized.
For you to gain enough humans to collectively work such that you will get realization. The idea that you do it alone is so messed up.
Yeah. I'm really taking this in. It's a clear thing that I've taken from this already is, a lot of times when people go out and they start a business or they want to achieve something, it seems that it's about how much validation they can get, how much money they can get, how much success or customers or all these kind of things. But in your mind, and you've lived that, and it's a successful philosophy, is it's about getting enough humans that are inspired by you so that they want to go and build that thing. And it's coming from a ground up versus a brain down kind of perspective. Ground up meaning you're lifting others up. Brain down is, I need to be the most important. I need to be the most successful. It's about me. It's about my life.
Yeah, it's interesting. The prize at the end of life is the same for everyone, and it's shitty. So you really want to be working on providing everyone the ability to lift themselves up together with you. And this idea that you somehow do it yourself and you only do it for your own petty little goals. We see that, and we see people who achieve a certain level of success doing that. And all of those people, when I've actually sat down with them, they're living shitty lives. They're not actually fulfilled. Some of them are psychopaths, so they have no chance of fulfillment anyway, which is sad. Also dangerous. Others, though, they're just lost. And they missed the point that not only do they need to bring people together and make it work together, it's that everyone needs to thrive doing it. For it to be really worth doing, the maximum number of people need to thrive while doing it. And if somebody is getting shafted, you can smile at yourself in the mirror as much as you like. A little part of you knows that you're not doing it the right thing. And the problem with that is the more you deny that, the more you deny your empathy, your love, and your humanity. And life without empathy, love, and humanity, by very definition, sucks.
For sure. So then if people are having these moments, because this will definitely bring clarity to a lot of different people, whether it be about their purpose, about the people that they're around and that they're leading potentially. If now this conversation has created awareness, how can they go from where they are in the sense of, hey, I understand that I need to treat this person better, or this person needs to get compensated better for their work, or whatever that kind of looks like within the entrepreneurial environment in mind. How can they go from maybe those sense of limitations or the unawareness that they were previously in to working through that and honoring that person and building a better business, no matter from where they're at? How can we start? What is the real process for that?
So there's three parts to it. The first part is stop worrying. Like, you can gain an enormous amount of productive time back if you just quit worrying. Like, literally, when you feel the fear, realize that the fear is generally a false alarm, and that your worry is an attempt to explain a random emotion rather than just confront the fear, accept it, and do a little breathing. One of the best things in the world you can do is just inhale through your nose, sniff very briefly, and then exhale. So 2 seconds in, quick sniff, and 5 seconds out, and you will reset your vagus nerve. So you literally like that. Or you can take a deep breath in and sigh. Either of those things will work. You feel fear, reset it. Unless there is an actual tiger in the room, it's a false alarm. Once you get rid of the worrying, then you have much more time to do the next thing, which is listen to your people. Actually listen to them. Ask questions that have open answers and really hear them and make them feel heard. Because if they're dissatisfied and you act as a safe place and you act as a good listener, they will inevitably start telling you the truth, the reality for them. And the third thing is eject all the psychopaths from your life that you possibly can. Because it's very hard to tell the difference between somebody who has an authentic grievance and somebody who just creates chaos in order to advantage themselves. And I've written rather extensively, and others have written extensively, about how you identify narcissists and psychopaths and how you can basically eject them from your life. Often quite painful. Several of my startups have had psychopathic co-founders that have caused a lot of damage because they like to attach themselves to the CEO, right? They crave power. And so ejecting them, listening, and dealing with your emotions so you're not worrying. And when you don't worry, it allows you to authentically plan.
Yeah, definitely getting rid of co-founders or ejecting people. How does that really work? You said it's very painful. Is there a process for doing it, or is it just like pulling off a Band-Aid? You have to do it hard and fast.
So get yourself well informed. If you're being gaslit, if performance around a certain person declines when you put high-performing people near them, if you have a group meeting and they don't like to show up in group meetings, they only want one-on-ones, there are a bunch of ways to identify them. Once you've identified them, if there is any doubt in your mind, just do it anyway. Your business will be better without them. Nobody is so important that you cannot continue without them. And make that tough choice. And yeah, you might have to pay them out. They'll probably lawyer up. That's the sort of thing that they like to do. They'll probably have an evidence locker. If there's someone who's been around for a long time, build up your own evidence locker. measure their performance, the actual stats, and have regular OKR reviews and show whether they're hitting their OKRs or not. The one thing that defeats a psychopath is evidence.
Bring the darkness to the light. Make it clear,
Yep.
not
Yep.
subjective.
Shine
Objective.
the light on that darkness. The light of data.
So with just a few minutes left here, what is one question
Yes.
that our listeners should be asking themselves as they move forward after taking this excellent information in? What questions should they be asking themselves?
I'll give you a couple of questions. One, what annoys me such that I really can't live in the world with it there? Because that is a great place to find a purpose to work on. A bonus question, I was once taught that the definition of forgiveness is letting go of your own suffering in the matter. And the bonus question is, who do I have to forgive in order to set myself free?
Phenomenal. I'm going to be asking myself those questions as well.
I'm very glad, Jacob.
Well, Bill, it's been a phenomenal conversation. I know we could go longer, but time is time. The time has come. So again,
Indeed.
it was a pleasure, and I'm grateful for having you here. So for everybody who has listened to this, make sure to ask yourself those questions. And I know me personally, I'm going to be going back and listening to this again because there were some things that I always take notes, but when something's really good, you have to listen to it again. So, Bill, we'll drop any links down below. Should we drop your LinkedIn? How would you want people to find you or reach out or engage if they're moved?
Actually, my Medium account is something that I'm pretty happy with, and they'll find a great resource on psychopaths there, as well as how I've stayed inbox zero for the last 40 odd years.
Perfect. We'll go ahead and drop that below. Everybody, thank you for watching. Until the next one, we'll see you then.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this episode of Titans Up today. What did you learn from it? Make sure to drop a comment below with your most valuable insight so that other people can engage in the conversation around what this speaker brought to the table. And then on another front, make sure to subscribe so that every time we drop a new episode, you will be notified. And that way you can keep fueling your dreams and your brain with fresh insights which can help you along your journey and along your path to your goals. So thank you so much again, and I look forward to seeing you in the next interview.